Welcome once again. It's Monday. It's slightly after 4 p.m. That means it's time for Infinite Musician Television. I'm your host, Dan Weiss. I don't know why. I like to really just get all the tension out of there. Really helps me be loose, keep limber, and get you all the most important information about changing the way you think about your music so that you can create the music that you hear in your head. That's why we created M-File in the first place. That's why we're rolling out an all-new course. How's that look? Ooh. Infinite Musician Mentality Spectrum. I've been working on the pieces of this for a little while, and we're going to talk a little bit about a contest that we're going to be throwing together later in the episode. But, do you want to know what you can win? Boom. This is silly. Let's get that. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We get this out of here. Let's try this again. Do you want to know what you can win? Boom. We've got the Infinite Musician Mentality Spectrum Bundle, where we have the flagship course talking about musical mindset, building habits for success, building a brand, defining your message, and placing proper finding the why, basically, behind different musical concepts. And then also part of this package, we have songwriting foundations and advanced songwriting secrets. This bundle here comprises all of the goods that you need to elevate your songwriting. Do you want to win this? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. If you don't, I mean, you can pay a couple $100 to try and get all of this stuff. But if you want some quote-unquote early access, if you want to get in on this, we're going to tell you how you can win all of this incendiary information compiled by yours truly, Dan Weiss, from M-File, Music Theory and Songwriting. But, for now, let's talk about a few of the things we got today for the show. We're going to be talking with Adam Carter, longtime Hamilton musician and promoter and video guy and just, you name it. I feel like this guy's had a hand in it. Incredibly talented, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff from promoting and putting together shows, some of his previous and future work with his music, and a little bit about when his video went viral a few months ago, Speaking Moistly. That was pretty cute. The original was okay. It was alright. But, like, his version got stuck in my head. That's what happens when you got the musical chops, baby. You can't get left behind. We're also going to talk about chord inversions, because that's a really important way to turn one chord into many different applications of a chord. It's kind of crazy how all these things can come from one thing if you know how to use them. Really stretch it out, get the most bang for your buck. And we're also going to talk about some ways to develop songwriting skill. Basically, well, these are skills. Sorry. Developing songwriting skills that help you boost your songwriting. Take that shit into the stratosphere. But first, we're going to talk about many, many years ago. I was a pretty sick kid. Don't know if you could tell, but I had a lot of trouble with asthma growing up. And, you know, I spent my first few Christmases in the hospital, and I knew all about ventilators and puffers and all kinds of crazy things. I had really bad allergies. I'd have asthma attacks at school, and the teachers would be hyperventilating worse than I was because they'd be freaking out. And I'm like, it's okay. And just like talk them through the process of how to use my puffers and stuff like that. I got kind of used to it, and it sucked because like I got left out of stuff, and I wasn't really allowed to do things growing up until I started getting around maybe 9 years old. I started getting more into running, which was, you know, kind of weird because sick kid can't breathe all of a sudden starts getting more into running. I mean, we were always running around playing as kids, but there would be that point where it's like, oh no, am I gonna have a heart attack or whatever? And so I started trying out for track and field and finding that I was kind of good at it. And I was a fast kid. And I figured, well, if I'm only running for a little bit, then I can avoid trouble, and this won't be so bad. But then, as time went on, they started kind of putting me in distance running and cross country. And I started getting better at that. And my dad took notice because he had the same thing, bad asthma, and he was very into the cross country team and everything. So he got excited because, you know, dads, they're looking for absolutely any way that they can try and steer their sons. Oh, this, you like this, or you did this, I did this. I'm going to tell you all about how to do it. It's genetics. So he got really excited, and he kind of pushed me more into it, and it turns out I was good at it. And I started getting better, and I started placing. You know, our when I went to Sacred Heart back home in Sarnia, we had a killer cross country team, like one of the best in the province. And it was really awesome to be a part of something that like just elevated my abilities as like an athlete. I didn't think I'd be able to do any of that. And so that was really cool. And I met a lot of really great people. But there were a few things that I, you know, when I think back, and even at the time I was kind of thinking about how distance running would really relate to music. There's a few things that I can think back on, you know, going through these races and everything, and it just it really took me from a place where I didn't think I could do it, and then I could do it, and then I got better, and then it improved my breathing, and then even beyond that, you know, I started taking home ribbons and placing and being on a winning cross country and track team. It was a lot of fun, you know. So I think of one race in particular. I was doing the 1500, and so that's like a few laps around the track, and you go and you run, and it's distance running, but you're it's in terms of distance running, it's almost a sprint. But there was just a few kids ahead of me, and you just start picking them off. And you know, you set a pace, and you, okay, I'm going after this guy, and you mark him, and you catch up, and you go for the next one, and you catch up. And it was always about having that next goal. You know, so if you have something that you're heading towards and you focus only on getting there, and then you worry about the next stuff afterwards, you know, obviously you want to finish, but each person is just the destination, and you're pushing against that, and you're racing against that. So that was one big thing, was always be thinking about that next mark, Because if you don't have one and you reach where you want to be, then you can get lost really easily. Or you mess up, or you don't think about long term. What's the next step? You're just kind of plodding along with no real plan. You're not going to beat anybody. So that was one thing. The second thing was that I found I was getting better with my short distance racing the more work I was putting into long distance. And when you were really thinking about it, like, you had to think about how you were taking your steps in your stride. You were thinking about how to control your breathing. You were thinking about, getting control of your body in a way that when you were sprinting, when you're a kid, you're just like, go fast. But as you start to spend more time with it, and we had really good coaches, in elementary school and in high school, and you start talking about how the body moves in slow motion. And they were very insistent that everybody do distance running. And it made me faster, because to go fast, you have to start slow. So in music, we talk about that idea where, like, you want to be playing blistering fast. You want to play at 300 BPM, you start at 40 BPM. You set the metronome as slow as you can. And you master the space in between. When you start to be able to feel, just like when you're running, you know the movement of your body, and you can figure out your stride. How long apart your strides are going to be, how far you can get in one go. You start working out that motion. It's the same with playing piano, it's the same with playing scales on a guitar. If you want to go fast, you have to start slow and really take in all the technical stuff that goes with that at a slow pace. So the next big one, obviously, is thinking about, controlling your breathing and staying calm. Because as you get out, they say 800 meters is like distance, 1500 meters is distance, but then you get into cross-country races where you're, in elementary school, you're doing 3K, 5K. In high school, you're doing like 10K races. That's a lot of stress to be putting your body under over a prolonged period of time. So the biggest thing is controlling your breathing, staying calm in the situation where, like, it's fucked. You're not supposed to be putting yourself through such rigor. Your body isn't used to it, generally, and it wants to just kind of give up and collapse and be at rest. So by controlling your breathing, you're controlling the pulse and the rhythm of your body, you're keeping yourself calm, and you're regulating your heartbeat, which allows you to push yourself further. So in a mind over matter, where you're just like setting up a system to be regular, and you're controlling your thoughts, which are helping to control your body, which is pushing you well beyond what you thought was possible. So when there's things happening in music, and you're feeling like, oh my god, this is crazy, this is nuts, I'm in a musical situation where I'm feeling maybe a little uncomfortable, that is the thought that's going to make you trip up. That's the thought that's going to make you stop playing. You need to be able to assert that control over your energy and take the situation as it comes. Freaking out, stopping playing if something trips you up, that is the stumble. That is how you let people know that something is wrong. And even bigger, you're letting your whole body know that something is wrong. So you're not going to be able to keep control over your faculties, be able to play as fluidly as you normally would be, or access all the parts of your brain that you normally would while you're playing. I mean, there were races that we would have to do in Lorne Henderson Conservation Area. And oh my lord, these races were tough. Like, running downhill, there's mud, people are wiping out, and there's trails going through like swampland and everything, and you were lucky to get to the other side and finish completely, clean. People would fall. It was encouraged. These were tough races. People would get hurt. And you knew this coming in, but you had to be able to control that fear, control your heart rate. And to be able to do that allows you the next point, which is the idea of consistency in your stride. So controlling the breathing, all of that allows you to be physically consistent. You set a pace and you're going, and you're controlling your breathing, and you set that pace, and it's the consistent beat, the locking into of a rhythm that allows you to finish the race, make these feats happen, manage to pull yourself through a forest and sand pits and muddy swamp, get on the other side, saying one foot in front of the other, and just keep doing that. Because 10K is a huge distance. That's a lot of ground to cover. But it starts with one step. And that one step becomes 100 steps. And that, once you reach that milestone, the next 100 or whatever aren't as many, right? Because you've been there and you've done that. When you get to that last kilometer and you're like, okay, one more. This is crazy. My legs are screaming, but I've already done 9 of these. We can do the last 10, or the last one to make it 10. So this comes in a lot of different ways. This is consistency with practice. If there's something that you can't get good at, you're like, oh man, I just want to be able to put this cool idea into my playing. I want to be able to write with this new technique that I'm learning, but it just isn't working. It's not feeling natural. Well, consistently spending time with it. Having that regular approach to doing it and doing it and doing it, and it gets easier. You don't think you're going to be able to do, groups of 7 in the Lydian augmented mode and, at 160 BPM. But you spend time with it, it's a little more familiar each time, and it's a little less daunting each time. And then beyond that, obviously, locking into rhythm. That's like the single most important thing that you can do while playing music. I mean, in a live situation, playing with other people, that is the one thing that's keeping the group anchored. Being able to play the same song. If you're not locked into the rhythm, you can be playing a lot of wrong notes, but if you're playing them in time, they might just think like, man, he's really advanced. He's doing some shit like, I don't know what that is, but when you lock into a rhythm with your stride and your breathing, then that groove helps to keep pushing you forward. If you've already been going, you know, it's almost harder to stop once you get going. So you can breeze through 5 kilometers. Be like, okay, I got a little more gas in the tank. It's time to kick it up a notch. Start picking people off. So being able to establish yourself into that groove, the feet hitting against the sidewalk, and you're breathing, moving in rhythm with that. Like I feel like a lot of solidifying of my time as a musician happened while I was running. And I would think of a song and I would run to that song and try and keep a steady rhythm. It was a lot of fun. I didn't think that I'd ever be able to do it, and I got really good at it. I mean, there was a race where I blew past somebody coming around a corner so fast that they fell out of bounds. They got disqualified. So it sucks for them. They probably think about that a lot. I think about it as how awesome I am. Because I'm a terrible person. But the ideas behind how to run, move your body, get far, and do it well. You know, you think about the mechanics, you start slow and move your way up. You have to be able to control your mind and stay calm. You have to be consistent. And when you get into a rhythm and you lock in, it takes you further, and it's almost harder to stop. That groove is good. Nobody really wants that jam to end. Except maybe some of the people listening who are like, oh my god, play something else. But just a little bit of ideas, musings, if you will, about the similarities between running and running that damn groove across my mind all day, son. Alright, so next we have our tasty interview segment with Hamilton's own Adam Carter. So I'll leave him to take it over.
I believe there we go. Yeah, we're recording. The marvelous scrumtralescent Adam Carter, a longtime friend of mine from the Hamilton music scene. You're a jack of all trades, really.
Jack.
Yeah, I mean, you've been a vocalist and multi-instrumentalist for many years. You've got the project going with the Human Race, obviously. You've got Melodic Pixel, which is your videography and doing all kinds of video editing and recording and stuff for people. And then there's also been a lot of the promoting. You know, we were always working together, and
that's how I met you.
Yeah, that's, you know, playing shows and getting us booked in places and doing a lot of legwork, and that was a big reason why you were on the list, not just because I love that sweet face of yours, but because there's so many things that you've had your fingers in, and so that gives you a very broad understanding of a lot of aspects of doing things that I feel like people just completely miss out on. You opened my eyes to a lot of things from working with you and talking with you and everything. And it was really like, oh, like, that's so simple. I can't believe I haven't thought of that, you know, but yeah, it's good to have you here and chat with you. And I guess a good place to start would be the beginning. What were your What were your musical inspirations? Like, do you have that aha moment where you were like, "Oh, I have to be a musician. I have
Yeah,
to be."
I grew up. My parents are 20 years older than me, so I
Mhm.
grew up. I was born in '82, and my dad had a vinyl collection, and I was listening to old Genesis, Yes, Rush, King Crimson, and probably when I was 6 years old, my dad taught me how to dub the cassette tape from the vinyl.
Ah, the
But
the
doing all that,
mixtape master.
and I'll tell you this: to this day, it sticks with me. Boston, that first Boston album I dubbed,
Oh,
and the needle skipped right at the of like the single, and it like replayed that riff like 3 times on my recording. So to this day, when I hear that song on the radio, it sounds wrong to me. So many times. So yeah, my parents were not musicians, but they exposed me to so much. The first concert I ever saw was '91. Yes, did the Union tour.
Ooh.
And that was like, okay, kids, we're gonna go to the concert. I'm 9 years old, and right. So I was really blessed in that regard. But it was high school. It was probably the same as you. Like I was in like 9th grade, and I started playing guitar and writing songs. I took acoustic guitar lessons in 3rd grade and quit after I learned like Ode to Joy. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, this ain't for me. And then I figured out some Nirvana tunes and took it from there. So yeah, always it was like, I want that. My dad called it the frisons, which I found out is actually a real word. It's a French word. I thought he made it up. That tingle you get when the music hits you just right. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, I want to be able to create that for someone someday. That's it.
It's the magic. Like,
Yeah.
that's
it.
the more that I thought about it, especially getting into music school, was like, we're at Hogwarts, man. Like, we're learning to become musicians and control energy with these instruments and like emote these things through stationary objects. And I'm like, that's fucking magic. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like,
Thing out of nothing was always something like that was like, still to this day, I love playing live. You know, you get that rush, but like really the victory for me is like, you finished that song and you birthed a thing that didn't exist. And then that's the real victory. Then getting to play it later, that's icing.
mm-hmm. The creative process is one that you clearly enjoy. I feel like you take so much care in your songwriting, and it shows. Like, you have a really unique approach to how you go about and write these songs, because it's not and this is a big thing that I like talking about, especially like with the programs that we're putting together, is that you don't necessarily start with a genre. You don't start with like a style, and that allows you to create something truly unique that is very much an Adam Carter original. You know, like when you hear the human race, it is the human race. You can't really put one kind of thing on it or anything, you know, like you can't quite get it. It is just what it is. And that's a really important thing. So how do you go about approaching that? Like what goes on in the lab when it's time to get creative?
It's unconscious. You don't think. And I think that goes back to what I used to listen to. All of these albums, I know you're a big Bowie fan, and he was the same way. He would never release an album that sounded like the album before it, but it was all Bowie. And for me, it's like, if it's honest and it's coming from you, you can make it a funk tune, a folk tune, you can make it whatever you want, but it like, there should be some je ne sais quoi that's like, oh yeah, that nug is there. Yeah. And a lot of it, I think, was just a function of who I was playing with. Like, I'd always write a song on an acoustic guitar, but then it's like you get together with the guys and you're jamming it, and then it turns into another thing. And I've always been, I used to be in bands that were bands, and we were democratic in politics, and oh my God. And
yeah,
it was like, no, I enjoy playing with you people and I trust you. So here's my skeleton. and take it and let's just turn it into something. So a lot of how my songs have developed have been a function of who I was jamming them with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, really loved the progression of, because when I first saw The Human Race, it was just you and a guitar, and that was like a powerful thing. I was like, oh, good, Adam's playing some stuff. I think it was like one of Justina mine's like first dates.
Oh yeah,
she was like, Adam,
or something.
Yeah, Adam's playing at Homegrown, and I was like, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. And it was powerful, like the fact that you were opening up for like a full band afterwards, and I felt so much more through your like it was very compelling. And I think that really is a testament of like why the songs are so good as an ensemble. You're able to get that with just you and a guitar, and there's enough there that when you start putting pieces together, it just adds to it, instead of, like, oh, it's kind of halfway there and this and that, and then it changes into something else, right?
Well, thank you. Like your whole thing right now with M-File, you're talking about songwriting, and I'm sure you've talked about the fact that a song has to be a good song. When you peel away all of the bells and whistles and the bullshit, if there's no song there, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
You have to have a song, and then it doesn't matter what you do with it after that. And I always enjoyed like being able to do a solo show where it's just me and a guitar or me and a looper, and the songs are this way, and then it's like, oh, the guys are available. Let's play it as a 7-piece band with saxophones and keyboards. And the songs are the same, but now they're delivered in this way. And people are dancing instead of like sitting there with a coffee,
Yeah.
And I get a kick out of that.
Yeah. I loved, I've seen the full ensemble a few times with Bruder and Pamela and Tariq on saxophone, John the bassist. And
John's been playing with me for over a decade, but I've had a few drummers. David, who used to drum with Mother Tarika.
Right.
Michel De Quevedo, who is a brilliant percussive wizard.
Yes.
Some shows we had Michel on congas and aux percussion, and we had Dave Gould drumming.
Gould.
And then I just leave the stage. When I get the 2 percussive guys there and we do a show, halfway through the set, I go leave the stage, order a drink, have a pee, and just give them like 10 minutes to just like make mad science. And that's my favorite part. Yeah, the more I play with other people and the more instruments on the stage, the less I want to play guitar. I want to play, but I want to leave more space for that magic to happen.
I think that's a really good kind of goal to have as like the architect of the band. Because this is, it's The Human Race is your project. And when you write the songs and bring it in, then they're kind of the accessories, right? And you call the shots and you say this and that, but it's never coming from a place of control. You're getting to put Lego pieces together and build like your ultimate band. You're building the vision, and you want to be able to like have the show that you would want to go see. You're writing the songs that you would want to hear, right? Like that's an awesome thing, to be able to step back from your vision and just be like, shit, my band is killing. Like
I watched the Zyla cast you did, I don't know if it was a week ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
No meaning. But something that jumped out with what you were saying during that was you're not just playing at a bar. You're creating an experience. And the people who come in, they are creating a space. And if everybody's having a good time, you've created an event, something special. You have to be there because it's this experience.
Yes.
And I think giving them, like, writing some good songs that people connect with is important, and giving the musicians a chance to have fun with it and enjoy themselves when they're playing with you. People read that, and then they come into the space and they're on your team. You know, they
Yeah.
want to have a good time instead of being like, wow me. You know?
Yeah.
'Cause this is, I remember a lot of this. I used to play in a prog metal band, and this is the posture, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I was so drawn to what you were doing with the belays and what Flat 5 was doing around the same time, because it was like they're creating a space for people to have a good time where it's okay to have fun and move instead of standing there worried about how someone else is perceiving you.
Yeah.
And there used to be a lot of that at rock and metal shows.
It was boring.
Yes, it was.
Like it's
Very boring.
even if you manage to do the impossible and get 15 people to your gig, then they're just standing there and it becomes this like weird competition. And it was like, okay, this is wrong. Like we got to find a way to get that defensiveness, like put the guard down and disarm them before they even get settled. You know, it was like, how do we go about creating a community? And obviously, like the bars we were playing at and the venues were always a big proponent of that. And it was like a dual kind of thing. Like they would be, oh, this is the band, we want more of them, we want more of them. And kind of creating and cultivating that culture.
Yes.
Of, like, I want to be a part of this. And like, if you're being dragged to a show and you've never been there before, like how many Baltimore house shows was it? Like people, you can tell and point out the ones that it's their first show. And they're just like,
they don't expect it walking in. You know, there were shows we did there. Man, you're on stage jumping around. People are crowd surfing. People were losing their minds. And from the outside, it's just like, oh, here's a bar. Let's just go in and have a drink. And then people walk into that. And if they don't like it, fine, we don't want you here.
yeah.
Like you were saying, let's make room for someone who's really going to add to the evening.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You don't want everybody in there. You need space for the people who this is for, and having an idea of who this is for from the beginning, it puts, you know, the vibe of the band, it puts the songwriting, it puts the themes for the show, because you gotta have a theme. It was like a kid's birthday party every time. And that was a big thing that started coming out a lot working with you, because you were very much about, let's do this. And that was always a favorite thing for me to do when we were in music school with like Post Downpour Squalling, when I was playing with like Bartek and Roni, Aaron Bowers, and all those other guys. So that was a really good, to be able to get the chance to work with you with the promotion side, which I think is really important, because you were always, event. What are we going to do? Let's have a bunch of glow sticks available and make it crazy. And the poster's cat themed. So you guys want to dress up like cats? Like,
and you guys were the best with that. One of my favorite memories was post Baltimore. We did a show where you guys were making grilled cheese from the stage of Casbah and handing it out to people in the crowd, and they lost their fucking mind. Let's do that again post COVID, by the way.
No, it was a very special time.
Yeah, man. That gives something. One, it gives people something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But two, it solidifies that show in their memory. You know, it's like it's locked away in there, and it's like there's a connection, and it's like, yes, I remember the time where people dressed up like cats, or where Justine was doing the body painting at Hollywood. And it was just like this added thing where people are like, were you at that show? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Oh no, the one with the cats. Yes, I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was always a really good strategy, because like it's real life viral in that way. Like it's the original virality of a show, where it's like, you know, people, it's 40 years later and people still talk about that show Jim Morrison got arrested for whipping his dick out.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't want to go that far, but there is something there to that where it's like, were you there that night?
Have done that.
Yeah.
Back in the old days when I was into like a lot of math rock, Hamilton was like a mecca for that in the early 2000s. Chore were one of my favorite bands, but also the band Kitchens and Bathrooms that were all like crazy spidery time signature math rock, and they would play like in their ditch, and the lead singer would be known. He'd just whip his dick out. Yeah, whatever. It's just what's happening. But I remember that
was interesting in the day.
Wild. And still, it wasn't like we built up to the fun we were having when you and I were playing on King William Street, because we were having a great time, but there still was only 20 people there at like the Underground or the Raven, or now I'm dating myself. The Raven, by the way, for all you listeners out there, the Raven is what Gallagher's was before it was Gallagher's.
Oh, wow.
I saw some bands there, man.
Rest in peace.
I saw Warsaw Pack. Yeah.
The sweat raining from the ceiling in a show like that would have yeah. Lee Reed is another just force of nature, that guy. How when he gets on, like, he's such a polite person when you're talking with him. You're just like very like, oh, thanks, man. I'm glad you...
Intelligent, and you know, he works at McMaster. I don't mean to sell him out, but there was a show he did a little while ago where he was talking to me before the show, and he was like, this is weird, man. I've been doing this for 25 years. You know, I've had this job for however many years. All the people from my work decided they were going to come to this show tonight. And he's like, it's the mixing of worlds. It's like that Costanza sort of Seinfeld thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Man. He was like a little bit on edge, because it's like, those are, you know, when he's on stage, he's possessed.
He is.
And I remember it was like a benefit for like the Pride thing that happened last summer or something.
Right.
And the cops came in that night, harassed people. And Lee Reed is on stage on fire. And I'm just imagining like the people that are there from his work who know Lee, who's probably amazing at his job and whatever, on stage, like inciting this fire.
Yeah.
That must have been weird for him.
It's like something comes down and injects him with like a political tornado.
Yeah.
And it's like the closest to like a modern Zach from Rage. You know, just that like there's something else behind the voice that's like pushing it forward and gives it this like and this edge and intensity.
As Lee would say, it's the realness.
Yeah.
It is the realness, you know, and
it's not a drop of dishonesty in how he performs, even though it is a performance. Like there's work Lee and there's stage Lee.
Yeah.
But stage Lee isn't a liar, and that's a really important thing, because he wouldn't have such a long career doing exactly what he's doing if people smelled for a second that he was dishonest about anything he was talking about.
Exactly. He's just a super version of himself on stage.
Yes.
Which is, I think, what a lot of great artists are. It's like, it is coming from a space of real, but you on stage are the most amped up version of that. And when you're free and you can let that loose, that's when the magic happens.
Yes, absolutely.
Speaking of that, I played my first show last night in 6 months.
I saw that.
The Absence Pack.
Recent photos.
With Sarah Beatty and Wax Mannequin. Now, I have been a Wax Mannequin fan for 20 years.
That's a hell of a tight.
I've had the pleasure of playing with him a number of times over the recent years, and it blows my mind that this guy, you want to talk about like my weird songwriting? This guy inspired me right at the end of high school, where he was taking that idea of the show to the nth degree. He created a system in 2000 called Jimmy Points, where you would come to the show, and from the stage, he would ask you to do tasks or make something out of paper mache or do something weird, and he'd give you a stamp on this card. You get a stamp for coming, you get a stamp for completing tasks, and when you got a line, he would gift you with a superpower. So I had sight for miles and electric fingers. was big. And he built this mystique around what he was doing that sucked people in. And then when that got old, he reinvented himself and said, now I'm the president of indie rock. And he wore a leather jacket and he got a band and he went on stage and he just bled realness. And then he started putting a candle on his head and it would melt down him when he was doing his performance as a solo artist. This is a guy that has figured out how to engage with the audience and make them go, something special is happening here. And last night, he was playing his songs, which I love, and a lot of the people on King William Street, some of them were there for the show, but there's just a lot of people out.
Yeah.
And he's just leaning against that window we're playing from in the absent stage. And in between songs, he's just riffing. And he's going off on Serb and Basic Income and raccoons and pulling out roots from his garden and psychedelics. And I'm just like, you don't even have to play another song. Just keep waxing because it's so entertaining and it is so real. And he is someone whose mind, he's such a creative soul that like the way he phrases something will stick with you forever. And that was a huge inspiration for me. When I'm writing songs, it's like, no, how do I give it an angle that is like, it's true, it's real, but it's not the same old shit that's been said before.
Right.
It's got a bit of wonk in there. Even if I'm talking about something serious, like I got a song about worried about getting hit by my bicycle, on my bicycle when I'm driving around, right? And it's like, fuck my mom up the first time that she heard me play that because she's like, ah! But also, my tongue is in my cheek. And it's fun and it's memorable and it's like, you got to do that. A lot of artists take themselves really seriously. They think they're the shit. And maybe you are, but you have to connect with people in some way that's real.
Yeah, there's got to be a level of you're still a person.
Yeah.
Right? Like and it's a product that you still need to be selling in some way. And that's just like one of the things on the checklist that you should have in every song, or at least try to, you know, like what's that line that's going to hit you and you're going to like Hammer of the Gods. You know, Led Zeppelin managed to steal that from like 2,000 years of Vikings.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, Led Zeppelin were the masters of theft. You know, no one did it better than them.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like Vikings are just like, for real? Like now people think of these guys? Whenever they say Hammer of the Gods, like that was us. That was me. That.
Oh yeah, man.
So, about the, let's circle back around to a bit of the promoting and some of your checklists for like, let's make the show an event. Let's make, like, you were always really good on the poster art and the theme and all these things. So let's kind of break down some of the process of how you would approach, okay, now we got a band, this is happening. What do we do next?
Yeah, that step right there was the hardest part. Like when I was booking Homegrown, I think I probably booked 400 events in 2 years.
You're a busy boy.
And you're getting all these emails from these bands. And it's like, who do you book together? And for me, it's like, okay, say you got an anchor band. You got a band that's really great, that's on tour, they're here on this night. The most important thing is if you're going to book a support act or 2 support acts, you got to choose bands that are going to gel with that band. Obviously, you don't want to book like a death metal band with like an indie pop band.
Yeah.
But
I have seen those shows, hilariously enough.
Yeah. But the one thing that I found was really great, being in a place where I got to see all these younger artists and I knew the artists that were older, is like, how can we take this crowd of like 22-year-olds whose music gels with this crowd of like 35-year-olds and blend? And so the thing that was really great about the belays, or the alto belays at that time, when I met Johnny Nails, when I met you guys back in the day,
Yeah.
I had my hand in a few different pots. You guys had this cool community from school and just doing your thing. And then I knew all these hippies from like the Come Together Music Festival that were doing like jam band funk, little different than you guys. But it's like, there are crowds here, two separate crowds. Let's put them together and see what happens. And then there was this like cross-pollination, this weird like scientific like do. And the next thing you know, all the fans of the Alto Belays are taking flat 5 and vice versa. And you've just doubled that drop.
It was an insane, like a new scene was created out of that stuff.
And then the bands started hugging each other and being like, "We love you guys," and it was just a good feeling.
Yeah,
But the biggest thing that I was concerned with booking shows, and I gave everybody shit for it. I probably gave you guys shit for it, although you weren't the worst offenders. And you could magically pull it off in ways others weren't. It's like, stop playing every month. Stop playing twice a month.
Yeah, we were
like,
so bad. I every single time it's like, oh yeah, we got this gig booked, blah blah blah. Put it in your calendar. It's like, what are you doing, guys? Like,
you gotta make it special. So I would be on the phone, or I would be on the Facebox with these bands, and they'd be like, okay, let's do a show. And I'm like, great, when are you playing? And they're like, well, we got 2 shows this month and 2 shows next month. And I'm like, okay, cool. So let's do it 4 months down the road. Don't book anything between now and then, and we'll make it big.
Yeah.
And the bands that I continued to work with, for the most part, they got that. Like, there needs to be communication, not only between bands in the scene, but in between promoters at different venues too.
Yeah.
Because if I book you guys at Baltimore House or Homegrown, and we got a big show planned, and the next thing you know, I don't want to call anybody out, but someone from another club goes and books you guys the week before, you've just fucked me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this show, but that,
yeah, we swear here.
that's
okay.
what it is. It's like, no, we had an event and now it's watered down.
Yeah.
And especially just pre-COVID, you know, people were hurting for cash. So you have a limited amount of funds to spend on a show per month. And when you get in a position where people have to choose between 2 shows for the same band at different clubs, that is not helping anyone. That's hurting everyone. So I think that to me was the starting point. It's like, we need to get a couple bands that gel, bring in from a few different areas, make sure they're not overplaying. And then I would like throw on some tunes, smoke a little doobie, and mess around and come up with like a poster or something. And from there, sometimes a theme popped out of it, and sometimes it would be like, sometimes you just make a weird poster and people share that and they're like, that's crazy. And like, it gets some awareness of the show. And then sometimes you do everything right and the show still flops, and then you scrape yourself up off the floor and you do it again.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's a lesson to be learned in it, and sometimes it's just really, like, who knows? Like, there were so many times where it was just like, this should have went well, and it just didn't. And you can't really take those things personally, you know? Like, maybe when I was a teenager, and it was like, fuck, this is supposed to be our biggest show ever.
Yeah,
and,
well,
you know, sometimes you play to an empty room, but you still play. And you still play like it's full, because anybody that happens to be in there is going to remember that show.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Going back to like that first time I saw Wax Mannequin, I was in high school, and I'm old. So I had grade 13. So I'm 19 years old in high school, going to bars on the weekends for the first time. And I saw Wax Mannequin play the Casbah solo to like 5 people. Here we are 20 years later, and I'm a super mega fan.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the show. He played it out. He got me, and there were only 5 people there. But 20 years later, here I am.
Yeah, lifelong fan.
Oh yeah, love the weird. But I don't know, man. The world we're in now, everything I just talked about, at least for the foreseeable future, almost doesn't matter, because you can't pack a club. You can't get like you're sharing the sweat and you're hugging each other and everybody's just, and it's like, oh, we can't do that. So how do we reinvent the wheel so that it can still be this special thing in a different way? And I think right now, everybody is scrambling to figure that out. There's no clear-cut answers.
I remember like probably the week before everything shut down, and I had sent you that message, and I was like, hey, like, how do we figure out this problem with promoting shows?
Yeah.
And like, I swear it wasn't me. I didn't do this. I didn't do it. It was not my fault. But how funny is that? Or it's like, we gotta solve this problem of like, how do we get outside of the same thing that's been going on for years and it's starting to not work?
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, boom, this happens. And obviously everybody is now picking their socks up and learning how to do live streams and videos. And there's so much content happening on that end, which is awesome. It does not replace shows, but it's the only thing that we have right now until we can figure out what the fuck to do next.
Yes.
But that brings me to the next important point is your experience with filming and videography and everything like that, because that came in handy for you. You know, like you were like, okay, I'm going to start making a video and do a performance in my living room, try and do one every couple days, whatever. One of them actually went a little viral with the Justin Trudeau speaking moistly video.
Got 17,000 hits in like a week.
Yeah, that's really fucking good.
It was our mutual friend, Jesse Gollum. The night that came out, she was like, tomorrow you got to do this song for your song of the day.
Yeah. And
I hadn't heard it, and I played it, and I'm like, okay, I'll learn it, because I was taking requests, and I got it out just as the algorithms were kicking.
Yeah.
Huffington Post featured me in an article with 2 other people who covered it, and all my shit lit up.
Yeah.
And I'd never had it happen quite like that before. And then this is the sad part. All my shit's getting hit, and it starts to peter off over a month or 2, and now I'm back to baseline. I'll release a video on Facebook, I'll get 1,000 views. Mm-hmm. On YouTube, maybe I'll get a couple 100,000 if I'm lucky. Doesn't matter anymore, because my hit was 17,000. So now if I get 1 view or if I get 1,000 views, doesn't matter. I don't got my dopamine. I need more than 17,000 now. Dopamine. And I'm chasing the dragon.
Right.
And I'm not really chasing it, but like it just.
I know what you mean though. Like,
you know, you had
that number
videos that got mad hits, right?
Yeah.
And then the next one has to get you more to give you the same amount. It's like a stupid analogy to capitalism. It's like, we need more every year or else we fail.
Yeah.
And that's not working. Yeah. That's not what songwriting's about or any of that.
No.
But that is what it's about now. Like the whole COVID thing, it's like content. And I know SoCan will pay you a certain amount if you got a certain amount of streamers.
Yeah.
And I know even before COVID, if we're talking about whatever labels are around or booking agents, they go to your, I know because I was one, you go to your Facebook, it's like, oh, do you have any likes? What's your engagement?
Right.
And that's used as a metric to sort of gauge a success of a band. And I hate that.
It sucks that it's because it's vanity metrics.
It is.
And it's like something concrete that they think this is definitive. So
and so don't buy likes, because I can tell within 14 seconds whether your likes are real or purchased. And don't brag about being number 1 on the Reverb Nation Hamilton list. Off Reverb Nation, don't mention it anywhere, because as soon as I hear that, I'm like, okay, this band, they don't know what's up yet. Because that is a vanity bullshit, always has been, sort of like, oh, buy our premium. Look, you're number 1 in your area. It's like, no. And it sucked a lot of bands in over the years. I still see that popping up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's a good system, I guess. It's still working all these years.
I would rather go to your Facebook page or your YouTube and watch a video, even if it's only got 40 hits, than go see something on Reverb Nation with all these fake comments.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I think a really important point that came out through the story of the viral thing is that the one boosted up everything else.
Yes.
So because you were already curating videos and content and everything, that one that does it, now you're in the system, you've done it before, and more people are likely to be shown your stuff. So it's like you need, I mean, there's the quality aspect. You're already taking care of that. So now at the quantity level, when you're like, I'm putting out songs and performances all the time, so that the more there is chance that someone's going to fall in my bear trap and become my new best friend.
Yes. That was the only thing that kept me sane for all of this. Like, I was doing a song a day. And then,
yeah, it was crazy that the
and then
blistering
now,
pace.
like, song every other day. In the last week, I've been a bit down and I've done like a song. But I'm going to get back to doing a song a day. It just kind of became work. You know how things become work. So I took a break. But the key there is live streaming 9 times out of 10 looks like a potato, sounds like crap. So I was like, I have all of this gear because I film live bands, I film music videos. And it's like, I'm going to get a set, I'm going to set up some lights, and I'm going to record really high quality stuff. And instead of just always posting these live streams that look like crap, I'll give you one song and it'll be really good. And then over the course of time, you can sit down now and watch 2 hours of me playing on a stream, but it's not live. I've color graded it, I've mixed it, and I think that really helped me because most people were doing live streaming. They'd sit down,
it stands out big time,
and they play for an hour, and it was great, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, well, because again, this is something where it's like, okay, radically shifting the landscape, and everyone's just scrambling to grab onto the technology that hasn't really been explored by them yet.
Yes.
So having the one up on everybody else was just knowing about setting up like a really good shot.
Yeah.
And making sure that you're testing your equipment and knowing how to test and like get your levels right and make sure that it's not picking up all room sound.
Unplug the fridge, turn off the fans.
Yeah. Like it's all these little things that people wouldn't necessarily think about until afterwards, where they're like, okay, something's not right. Like this could sound better or this could look better. Yeah. So what is it? You know, and it's like there's a few things that obviously the Melodic Pixel Media, your experience with all of that and starting that company and everything, like you were basically like sitting back for a week watching everybody get desperate and you're just like, all right, hold my beer. Like I gotta do something here. Because
the thing that really stood out to me was that, see, the internet was supposed to be this level playing field for musicians. Mm-hmm. It is not.
No.
And as more and more, it's not. Like, it's just more for the people that have the machine behind them and less for everybody else. But as soon as COVID happened, I started seeing major label artists shooting shit videos on their phones because they have money, they have resources, but they can't bring in their team to get it done. Right. So all of a sudden, my videos have a production quality that is dwarfing people who have 1 million plus followers. And that was the real sort of level playing field for once in my life in terms of being able to produce something of quality.
Right.
It's just like, I have the means here, I can do this thing, and even if I don't get the views, I am now world-class quality compared to somebody who, they would just pay someone money to do it, but they can't do that now. And that, I think, is a big component of being successful as a band. It doesn't have to be one person doing it all, but like if you can understand the background, like if you can understand setting your stage volume, if you can understand having a merch table that is designed.
Yeah, not just slapping it down.
This is where you want to come check things out. instead of being like, meet me in the back of my van after, you know, if you have someone in the band that understands composition, so that like if you're going to shoot your own photos, or if you're going to design your own artwork, which you guys did with the Alto Belays, it was interesting. It was something that you wanted, instead of it looking like it came out of MS Paint.
Right.
Because there's people that still do that. They just don't necessarily know. And it's not a prerequisite. Like, if you have money, you can hire people, and please hire people, because people need to hire me. But at the same time, you're a musician, and if you're going to exist in these days, you have to be, or have people around you that are designers, sound engineers, booking agents, web guys, because it's expected now.
You got to wear many, many hats.
Yeah.
Like, it just, you become indispensable, more so the more skills that you have, at least even a basic understanding of. Because at the base level, checking off a few of these things goes so far.
Yeah. Like
doing the bare minimum for your sound. It's like, okay, this is actually tolerable. Like, I can sit through and watch this whole video of you performing because it doesn't sound like it was recorded in a fucking coffee can. You know, like...
yeah, and part of that is, like, I'm lucky because even though right now I'm not incredibly wealthy and I'm not really working, I have 25 years of collecting little pieces of gear to be able to do what I want. So I have a condenser microphone plugged into a board. You were showing people your little board. I have this one, similar one. And it's like, I know how to plug it into a DAW and get a good signal. And I may not be a world-class audio engineer, but you don't have to be to make it sound decent for people coming out of a laptop or their phone or whatever.
Right.
You just have a basic understanding, and you have a $200 microphone, you know, and a $300 board. And Dave Grohl gave a keynote. Dave Grohl, he knows what he's talking about. He was telling people the same thing. He's like, listen, no one taught me how to play drums. No one taught me how to do any of these things. I just did it. And that was sort of like how I started out in a band, playing all ages shows, burning CDs and making our own artwork and handing them out.
Oh, yeah.
No one taught me how to do any of that. We just did it, and we failed upward. You know, you get better at things as you go along. And so, like, a lot of people are waiting. They're like, as soon as we're discovered, as soon as somebody decides they want to get us into the club. I was so uncool playing prog rock for years because it wasn't hip in Hamilton, a punk town. And I was like, that's fine. I don't need to plug into this scene. Then we created our own scene at Homegrown, at Baltimore House. Next thing you know, Brody's calling me up, Jim at Corktown, and they're like, hey, bring that scene here. And I'm like, no, it's my scene.
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't there, so you can cry about it and feel like you're left out, or it's like you can do what you do to like create something new. And like that ripped my skull open. Like we built a thing. It was awesome. And it was a communal effort. And still to this day, I get people that are like, oh, I miss Homegrown. Those shows. Oh, the Baltimore House. There's never going to be anything like that again. People are going to be talking about that 20 years down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now it's like, where's the next one? Who's the next crew? You know, they got to do it. You know, like, I'd love to be a part of it, but I don't have like $300,000 to put down to buy a fucking venue. And
what happens too is there's burnout, right? After so much building and putting in time to develop things that I did, I don't have the energy anymore. Even if all the clubs were open, I was doing, 4 to 10 shows a week. We would double up and do early shows and late shows. And then I was doing like a big show a month. And I was doing a big show every other month. Yeah. And like just pre-COVID, it was like I was doing a quarterly show. Really great acts, really good show. But I'm not just booking for the sake of booking anymore because it's too much work and I'm spent. Someone else has to do something.
Yeah.
And I think just pre-pandemic, you and a bunch of people in the scene were aware of what was going on in like semi-private spaces.
Yeah.
Like we're going to do special shows every once in a while in this old church that now people live in. Yeah. We're going to rent it from them. We're going to do a bring your own booze thing. Everybody's going to respect this event and it's going to be a blast. And it's not the gatekeeper being the bar anymore. You know, you hire a door guy, you hire a sound guy, you set up the stage yourselves. But in the end, people are happier to come and bring their own booze. Mm-hmm. People are happier to spend $25 on a ticket. You got enough money to pay the bands, and it's an event. And I still believe once things peter out, this is going to be, we're going a little back underground, a little more DIY. There's a few spaces in town right now that are primed for it. I'm actually going to be doing, I'm going to do a plug here. If anyone knows Daphne Reed of the Satisfied Customers, Daphne Reed is one of these people that lives in an old church now. And she owns it. Her and her partner live there. And it's beautiful. And Daphne not only happens to be an amazing musician, but a network genius, like in terms of computers, a sound person. So we have a small crew of people that are going to be doing really high quality streaming broadcasts where it's like, Daphne's got the sound, I've got the cameras. We're gonna bring in bigger acts that people are dying to see and try and get people to make some donations. Yeah. You know, we're not all getting rich, but it's an experiment. But eventually, you know, we can have 20 or 30 people come into this venue and socially distance and pay a premium for it. It's like there's a $40 ticket for this killer band. It's intimate, bring some booze, social distance, and then it's special.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think like no one's going to get rich off that, but as a stopgap, I think that that's the answer, especially if you can have some interaction. Like if the band's on stage and there's ways for people that are streaming to be able to interact, whether it's 15% of the set list maybe is reserved for requests that people bought tickets in advance. And with your premium ticket, you get a song request and they pick the top 5 requests and they're going to do them. Or they're going to give shout outs. You're going to buy a premium ticket and someone's got a birthday. You got an event coming up. You want to just like say, hi, mom. It's like premium ticket. Stop.
Finally make sure that the people who are asking you, oh, it's my cousin's birthday. Cousin, also happy birthday to my cousin. It's like, stop. You're spilling all over the pedals. Like, get away. Like, this is the perfect antidote for that shit. That's that's one of the things I do not miss.
But my birthday. Oh yeah. Can I sit in with you guys? Can I play your guitar for a song? No, you cannot.
Never.
No. I think the big thing that's missing, and there is no answer yet, but why am I going to watch a live streaming event that doesn't look and sound amazing when I can go on YouTube and I can watch 4K HD, beautifully mixed, multicam, 2-hour concerts of any band in the world for free?
Yeah.
The answer is you have to be able to interact in some way. You have to be able to feel as though you are a part of it, because that is the magic that we had at the clubs. People wanted to come because they wanted to be a part of it. If you have any answers, shoot me a message, because my brain's always ticking with this.
I had a much smoother transition out of there. I don't know why that didn't work. But here we are back in the sweat box. Again, another 35-degree day. And I'm just liquid Dan. But yeah, that's part one. We continue on with our conversation next week. We went for 2 hours, and it was really, really nice because it was just, there was a point when I was like, okay, we're getting to an hour, and then I just didn't say anything because I was like, well, how long will this really go? And I mean, Adam's got a lot of experience about a lot of different things, and I was really happy to be able to get 2 episodes worth of content out of our awesome conversation. So you can check out Adam, his music at The Human Race Sings on Facebook, and Orbit, I think it's Orbit Band or Orbit Hamilton. You'll be able to find it with Orbit Hamilton. And as well, Melodic Pixel Media. He does a lot of really good work for a lot of awesome musical acts around town. But on to our next segment. We're going to talk about 5 things that you can do to add new depth, add new techniques, add new approaches to your music, your songwriting. If you do these 5 things, you will be able to add new songwriting skills. And these things are separate activities, but they are indeed songwriting skills. Now, the trouble with something like songwriting is that at first glance, it might kind of seem a bit more ethereal, almost. Like, oh, I want to get better at guitar. Well, you practice these scales, and here's these chords, and here's this book with exercises. And while there are books on songwriting and everything, the process doesn't seem so much clear, cut and dry. If you do this, this will make it better. So sometimes when you're starting out, that kind of idea isn't always readily available for you to take advantage of. Spicy in here. So, let's talk 5 steps to add new songwriting skills. So, number 1, collaborate with other musicians. You know what works well for you. When you get into another working situation with another songwriter or musician, and you get to not only see the other side of it and how they approach songwriting or certain things, maybe they have certain cliches or certain habits that they tend to use stylistically in their songwriting. And you get to sit, a back seat and see what it is they're doing. Be able to kind of adapt that into your playing. But beyond that, whoopsies. Hitting the damn microphone here. Beyond that, it is your own work ethic, work style, songwriting style, musical style, meeting another's and balancing and finding ways that they can kind of interact and make a yin-yang with each other. Collaboration is such a... it kind of was used as like a really cheap, almost marketing tool. Just like, oh, these 2 people together. And while it does give a boost for both people if they're doing the right things and they got a good active fan base, introduce each other to your communities and your groups. From a pure writing standpoint, being able to take your process as something a bit more flexible and take it to work, take it to battle, almost like friendly sparring with somebody else's style, because you might learn a lot, you might be able to take something new away, or even find out something about your own writing that you never really thought about because you're seeing it through someone else's interaction with you, which I think is really, really, it's a lot of fun and it's interesting as well. So that's number one, collaborating. Number two, you need to practice active listening. Now, you know, if you haven't really heard of that before, maybe you're like, what? I listen, I hear things, I put music on, like I got ears and they work, I tested them. But there is a really big difference between just like hearing some music and actively listening to what is going on. You know, there was a lot of time in a lot of different classes that it was legitimately expected. You sit and you listen and you try and dissect everything that's going on in the tune and listen for things maybe that are hidden or not easily heard unless you're looking for them. So this kind of, I guess, boost in your engagement in the listening process can be a huge skill. Because now you're not just listening to your favorites and kind of poking around. And you're not, you know, I'm going to write some songs and you end up just basically ripping it off because you only know the surface level stuff. This is about really figuring out what's going on, what's at work. You start training your ear, and maybe not in like a serious ear training sense, where, you know, you're picking out what key it's in and what chords and inversions they're using and stuff. And let me tell you, it's not impossible. It's a lot of work, but it can be done. But beyond that, it's about, okay, so, you know, what do I like about this specific rhythm? You know, how is it playing against the rhythm of this other instrument? Oh, that's a really interesting chord. What was that? What's happening in the melody there? Let's try and figure that out, you know? What is it? Oh, this run, this lyrical run here. A really good rhyme scheme kind of thing. And the meter of the lyrics is really good. I'm going to kind of write that down just so I can take a look at it. And you know, when you're actively listening, you can't just be a consumer of content anymore. You know, you're a creator now. I that's always something that I'm going to keep saying, because you have a responsibility to keep progressing and to keep getting better, because that's how you're going to stay relevant. That's how you're going to find more fans. That's how your fans are going to appreciate being taken on a journey with you. So you don't have the luxury to just mindlessly consume content all the time. Those days are gone. You need to free up all that time so that you can be improving. So, you know, obviously enjoy, listen, you know, have fun with your music and everything, but you got to be making time to really tear these things apart and analyze them and find out what you like. And even if there's stuff that you don't like, try and find out why. What is it about it that you don't like, and how you would take it and adapt it and improve upon it. That's number 2. Number 3, incorporating new sounds and ideas. So obviously, you know, like, oh, new. Yeah, try new things. Cool advice. Good wisdom, internet guy. But this is kind of an offshoot of the previous one, where you're listening and you're finding cool little, oh, that's a really good nugget of information up on the music tree. I'm gonna reach up and pick it. Now you're taking something and you got to do something with it. And that can be a lot harder, and it can be a lot more frustrating than you might expect. Because you really need to take time with an idea or a concept and get comfortable with it. You know, that was a mistake that I made a lot in music school because, oh, cool, crazy new chord. Or like, oh, we're talking about whole tone scales. Well, like, I'll write a song that's got big augmented chord sections, but like I can't play over it. And I couldn't solo. It was kind of embarrassing. It's like, okay, we're gonna need more time to figure this song out because this is still a really new idea. But that doesn't mean don't, leap right into these situations. But because it was that experience of doing something with it, realizing that I didn't know what I was doing, that forced me to kind of find ways to adapt it. We're taking the lesson and turning the knowledge into wisdom. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. So finding that way to internalize, take that new stuff that you're learning about and actually incorporating new sounds, new ideas into your writing and into your music. Because with music, these things are not like, it's only this. This is this and that's that. Nothing more. There are so many different uses for everything. And that's kind of the fun about it, is trying to find different ways you can combine ideas and concepts and sounds. And you don't know unless you try. So you gotta kind of give yourself permission to be that mad scientist. Just go to town, experiment, see what happens. So, number 3. Now we're at number 4. Learning songs by memory. Memorize songs. I was always really bad for this. I never felt confident without having that stuff there in front of me so I could look. But when you memorize and internalize, it becomes second nature. And beyond that, the actual workings of it becomes a part of you. When you memorize a jazz standard, which looking at a chart seems daunting, there's lots of chords, they're all over the place, it's changing keys, so you got to figure that stuff out. But in the process of memorizing it, you have to figure out a way to successfully navigate the song. And once you do that, now you're in a playing position where you can play it, and you play it comfortably, and you can do more with it. Because again, it's the absorbing of the knowledge that becomes the practicality of wisdom. So to be able to get up and sit in with a band, and they call a tune, and you know it well enough, and now you're making it your own, well, obviously the next step is taking all that stuff that you are doing by memorizing tunes and now applying it into your own songwriting and playing. It's not just looking at a book and saying, oh, okay, this, and this, these chords go together. Well, how? Why? What can you do with them? Like, what situation? Could you turn it into a different key? Like, put it somewhere else? Could you change some of the chords around? Like, you have to be able to take things and adapt. And memorizing songs is a really good process because you can't just look at the bare minimum stuff. You can't just memorize the shapes. That story of me failing at the guitar exam. And the teacher said I was just memorizing the shapes. I don't actually know it. I don't know the music. You know? So when you learn the song and you memorize the song, it's not just, oh, C, D, G, whatever. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes. And the fifth one, using frameworks. I'm a huge proponent of this. You're taking some kind of set, oh, we're going to have this kind of song structure. It's going to go in this way. Or we're going to use these types of chords for this song. Or we're going to try and write over this kind of scale. Or, I don't know, maybe starting with some kind of chord progression formula, picking something at random, throwing a few chord progression things that work together and seeing what you can come up with. Available now at chordprogressionsbook.mfile.ca. But the thing is, when you use frameworks, it's something loose. It's a structure that gets you pointed in the right direction. Where you go from there is completely up to you. But being able to start solving a problem, now your brain is in overdrive. And it'll take you to places using that added creativity boost of problem solving that you would not have been able to reach had you just started trying to write. So, 5 awesome skills to level up your songwriting. Collaborate with other musicians. Practice active listening. Incorporating new sounds and ideas. Learning songs by memory. And using frameworks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You even took just one of those things, your songwriting would get better almost instantly because you'd be hearing or experiencing or learning new things on the spot. So let's talk about chord inversions. Shall we? Can we do that? Can we do that? You want to get a chord inversions for the table? Chord inversions. This is something that you probably hear about. Inversions of a chord. What does that mean? Why would I want to do that? How does it work? Well, let's talk about it. We'll bring up our keyboard of knowledge here. There we go. Now, we've talked about triads. It's the most simple structure of a chord. So we got C major, 3 notes. It's every other note, starting from the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and we got ourselves a nice little chord. C major, right there. Sorry, I thought I had something pulled up here. And I didn't. And now I'm pissed. Excuse me. Just waiting for this to load here. Trying to get this to work earlier. And funny, it was fully working. And then magically, like an octave section on my key station just stopped working. Perfect. And it's not working, but that's okay. I'll edit the sounds in later. So we have C major. A C major triad. Pretty simple. Now, what would the case be? You know, okay, we've got a C major chord on a chord chart, or we're just supposed to play C major, whatever. Does that mean we're only limited to that one shape of C major, whichever one you've clung to religiously, so devout to this thing, so you don't have to learn another shape for the same chord? So you don't want to confuse yourself or make things too complicated, right? But what happens? Okay, you don't want to just play that open chord C shape. The one method is inverting the notes in the chord. We don't want to go playing a completely different chord, because then we'll start getting some weird notes in there and it might sound a little off, and that's not what we're going for at this point in time. But if we start rearranging the notes within this C major chord, we're getting more options for the same thing. Now, if we look at how these notes are organized, we've got C to E, and that is an interval of a major third. And you can hear that when you play it. And then between the next one here, E to G is a minor third. And you can hear the difference between the two of them. Right? So if we start messing around with the order, we're also going to fundamentally change the relationship of, the intervals between the notes in the chord. So if we were to, take that low C note and move it all the way up, boop, we've now created an inversion. Took the bottom note, put it on top. But something else interesting happens, because now we've got this minor third here between the E and G. And then we've got a perfect fourth interval between G and C. That interval did not exist before. So it sounds like a bit of a different chord, even though it's the same one. So when we look at our original, this is what we call root position triad here, C major, because the root of the chord is on the bottom. When we have an inversion of the chord, the C goes up, and now we have our first inversion chord. Can we do this again? I don't know. Let's find out. So we've got our first inversion, E, G, C, still a C major chord. If we were to take that bottom note, pop it on top. Now we've got G, C, E. Same notes in the C major chord, just in a different order. And once again, we have a perfect fourth now on the bottom, and a major third between the C and the E on top. So again, we've changed the relationship of the intervals between the notes in the chord. And this is the second inversion. Basically, you just keep taking notes from the bottom and putting them on top and cycling through, and you create different inversions of the same chord. So again, we have a root position with the C to E creating a major third on the bottom, and E to G creating a minor third on the top. Sounds quite nice. And then we have first inversion, minor third on the bottom, perfect fourth on top. And then second inversion with a perfect fourth on the bottom and a major third on top. And there you have it, chord inversions. With one chord, you create 3 chords, and that's just a 3-note chord. You start adding more notes on there, picking and choosing which notes you want to play out of a whole stack of them, and just inverting that and seeing what you can come up with. Things get pretty crazy, and you come up with all kinds of different options. So don't ever feel like you're stuck to just one type of chord, you know. Move them shits around. Get crazy with it. All right, we've come to the record portion of today. Today's record is, there we go. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. That shine. Not really doing so well, but I didn't adjust the white balance. That's my bad. I didn't take Adam Carter's advice, and now my video sucks. So Elton John, 1973. This masterpiece drops on the world. And holy, I mean, 1973 was already a really, really heavy year for music. Lots of some of the best albums that were ever made dropped in 73. And this one obviously stands out. Elton John, always a tremendously talented musician, very distinct style. And that style is just kind of put to the fore, full force, prominent. You know, this is almost like that flagship album. And it's got a ton of the hits on here, obviously. Like Candle in the Wind, Benny and the Jets, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. And this is a double album, too. There's a lot of music on here. And some of my favorite Elton John songs that aren't the hits, like Dirty Little Girl, Ballad of Danny Bailey, I love that one. Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding. He opened with that when my friend and I went and saw him a few years ago. And I was just like, no way, come on. Really? You're opening with this? This is amazing. There's a very, I don't know, each song almost lends itself to being a scene in a movie. Like a lot of songs kind of can do that, some better than others, but there's so much narrative and cinematic flair in all of these songs on this album. I mean, it could just be lyricist Bernie Taupin, one of the best song lyricists of all time. He wrote all the words for all these songs and everything, and just an incredible narrative ability to be able to tell a compelling story in song without making it boring and just giving you detail. You know, he's very, very good at letting the narrative unfold. As a listener, you're drawn in. You're excited about it. The music plays off of that so perfectly. And I don't know. There's just something about the way that these songs work. It's like they're their own self-contained movie, even though it's just the music. Like, you get the images in your head, and I know the ones that I would see would be probably different from any of yours. But it pulls you into a different world or a different time or a very specific instance or feeling or whatever, and you're there. And for such a piano-centric album, You know, sometimes it's kind of harder to get a bit more of the rock element because it's piano. You can get hard rock out of a piano, but usually, you know, you got a lot more keyboards going on, and piano is kind of relegated to playing second fiddle or lower once the electric guitar came over. It wasn't Jerry Lee Lewis kicking the piano bench out from under him and hammering on the keys and going crazy that was defining of rock and roll anymore. It was the metal of the guitar that became the defining sound of rock and roll. But this album has both in spades. Virtuosic piano playing and just dirty guitar tracks. I can never remember who. I'd have to open up and get in here, but man, just do yourself a favor, put aside some time and really actively listen to this album and pull apart everything you can. This is several masterclasses in musicianship and songwriting and production and arrangement and lyricism. I mean, you name it, this album has it. So whether you're a fan or not, I highly suggest that you do yourself a favor and check this out. Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road, Elton John, 1973. Oh, what a year it was. And now for some pictures. We get rid of me. Goodbye. And here we go. Oh, how'd that get there? I was trying to take a picture of the piano and that book just kept showing up. It must be important. But yeah, that workstation there, I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's a really good way to sit down and work away at piano stuff. I mean, I have more piano knowledge than probably a lot of guitarists out there, because usually some people stay kind of stuck on one instrument. But I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm good at piano, because I'm not. You know, I know people who are good at piano and keyboard. I am not them. But it's really important to take time and pick things apart on another instrument that's not your own. It challenges you. Again, it's problem solving, so you're getting creative and thinking of new things in new ways. But also just specifically getting on a keyboard and figuring things out musically. The keyboard is laid out visually very easily. It's linear. You can see the notes moving around and how they change. So, you know, maybe pick up this beautiful ultimate songwriting resource here at chordprogressionsbook.mfile.ca, wink wink, and sit down at a keyboard and figure your way through these progressions. See how they're moving. Even if you don't play the piano, when you work through chord progressions and start to get ideas, now you can go back to your instrument and approach things a bit differently because you've been able to see things in a different way. You always want to try and expand your vision and how you're understanding things and how you are going about approaching things. Now this is just funny. An orchestra of 120 players takes 40 minutes to play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. How long would it take for 60 players to play the symphony? Like that? I'm amazed. Because I thought it was the math people who were so smart, and people who do music are dumb, and they're... So, I mean, aside from the fact that this is just horrifyingly wrong, and that's not how music works at all. You don't end up playing through a piece faster the more musicians you have playing. It's not horsepower. But there are a lot of stereotypes of musicians, kind of being dumb. And that so is not the case. I feel like there's so much more intelligence in music and playing music and devoting yourself to learning music and an instrument that I feel like kind of gets left by the wayside. And it's really detrimental that we're losing all these music programs in schools and everything, because it's not about becoming a famous artist. It's about learning to see, learning to observe, learning to communicate and emote. No wonder the world's falling into shit chaos. Nobody considers themselves an artist. There's been this barrier that's put up where if you're not going to be a famous artist, make a bunch of money, which, that was never the point in the first place. We lost these very important skills of observation and communicating that we get through things like art. So don't let anybody shit on you because you're an artist or a musician, because these are the other people out there thinking they're really smart and printing textbooks that have bullshit mistakes like this. Oh, who's that cutie? That's me. Probably 2-3 years old. Just wailing away on a guitar. It's funny because, for as long as I can remember, I just always wanted to play guitar. Anytime I saw a guitar, it got me excited. If there was a guitar being played on anything in a movie or TV, I would stop what I was doing and watching it. I watched the Beatles movie Help 32,000 times in my life because they played the guitar, and I just always wanted to. And it's funny that it took me so long to actually just be okay with doing it, starting. As a baby, I didn't give a shit about how I sounded, and if I probably just played around with it all the time, I would have been able to figure some stuff out and get good at it. But there seems to be some weird barrier that comes in our life, along with so many other things, where we lose this ability to be okay with failing. And a really important thing that Adam said in the interview today, failing upward. We learn to be ashamed or embarrassed of making mistakes. And then we close off, and we don't let ourselves be open to these experiences, these learning experiences. And it's really too bad. Because, only a handful get to the point where they realize that that was a good thing. And then they spend so much time trying to unlearn everything so they can get back to that. They realize the importance of that. Therein lies true creativity, is when you're unhinged, not in a crazy person way, in the way that you're untethered. You're not bound or chained down by anything like embarrassment or regret or anything like that. And this is a sideways photo for some reason. Let me fix that. Why didn't it do it? Come on. Okay, so nothing's happening. That's fine, probably. So we've got our picture here of all of my files from music school. And it was a lot, as you can see. But having things organized and prepared and ready for me to be able to look through it at any time has really I mean, obviously come in handy with creating all of these videos and courses and articles and everything like that. But also because I can flip through anything and can continue to learn. It's not there as just like a reference for writing stuff for everyone else. If there's anything at any time I can think about that might come in handy, I can just reach over and grab it. So, yes, artists have a bit of a habit of being messy and disorganized. But even a little bit of organization can go a long way to just helping you get over that next hump or whatever. You know, like any challenge that I might run into, there's a good chance that the answer is in there. And when it was just a mess of papers in a box in a closet, that was not conducive to learning. It got in the way. So being able to clear these obstacles out of the way in advance reduces the friction and allows me to be able to access all of my knowledge. Speaking of which, I should probably go about digitizing this so I don't look like I'm from the 70s. And of course, we have our famous quote from Hans Christian Andersen, the Little Mermaid dad himself. Where words fail, music speaks. Really beautiful sentiment. I mean, there's music that hasn't had any words at all that has moved me to tears, and I'm sure you can say the same thing. There's something about trying to describe the indescribable that really misses the point. Something indescribable isn't just hyperbole. There are things that we do not have a proper word for. But they sure can make us feel things. And that is the beauty of music. Being able to find all these weird spaces in between the words that don't quite get it. Music fills that up. It gets to the heart of the matter. All these shades of feelings, all these experiences that words do injustice to. It's like taking a modern video game and trying to play it in 8-bit Nintendo technology. You are not going to be able to get all the details. Well, that does it for this week. I have been your guide, journeyman, coach, creative bully. Get out there and make some music. Become the musician you are supposed to be. Create the music that you hear in your head. Somebody get me a hose and a towel, because I am just sweating. If anybody wants to install a personal air conditioner in my office, that would be hella tight. But until then, well, I haven't said when. Next week, 4 p.m., we'll go live, do another fun thing. Until then, I'm Dan. This is Zemfile. And you are beautiful. See you next time.